Greetings, my mortal friends. I'm Artur, artist here at GamersGrass, and today we venture into a dark realm. Join me as we build some epic bases using the Chaos Wasteland Basing Box. So let's begin. This theme is designed to evoke a retro barbarian atmosphere. Imagine figures like Conan the Barbarian striding across a desolate land of jagged stone and merciless terrain. It's an ideal choice for twisted and corrupted beings, miniatures whose presence should evoke unstable lands scarred by dark forces. Chaos warriors, warped champions, arcane demons all would feel right at home on these bases, and fully immersed in their lore. In the end, a good narrative will make all the difference for your projects. You know what? Let's bring the diorama. This way we can get a better sense of the concept of the landscape. I used a lot of elements, including some large angular stones, to create this feeling of a harsh, chaotic site. In my mind, when I think about this theme, both visually and narratively, three elements immediately come to mind. First, a jagged and hostile landscape where sharp rocks violently burst from the ground. Second, a world that feels dark and burned, scorched by magical winds and fires. And third, of course, bones. Lots of bones. Look at the bones! All things considered, pretty chaotic if you ask me. So join me in this video and let's create some bases for this party. Let's make them look truly epic in their own lands. We begin in the foundation phase. We will shape our terrain using basing bits, texture pastes to establish the physical landscape itself, before any paint touches the base. The first step will be to build the rocky scene of the bases, so grab some Chaos Shards basing bits. By using some clippers, it's really straightforward, just cut out the supports from the bottom of each of the bits. As always, test the fit of the bits with their intended model, to create a nice scene composition and a base that feels authentic and believable. Once you're happy with the base layout, glue the bits in place with superglue. I recommend clustering your shards near the edges of the base. This will give your character a natural backdrop, while keeping the center area free for you to glue it. It will also make your bases look more like a cropped window of a larger imagined landscape, as if the shards continue beyond. Join multiple shards together, creating a larger shard cluster. Try aligning the shards in one generic direction, as if that's the direction of the rock formation. This will help sell the idea of a realistic natural terrain. That said, you can absolutely take on different approaches. For example, you could lean into a more magical arcane effect, where the shards burst radially from the center of the base outwards, as if driven by some spell. The more time you think about this and try different combinations and ideas, the better the end result. Some miniatures already feature rocks, earth, or architectural elements in their own sculpt. When this happens, the best way is to integrate those features with our base design. A good example of this is this mounted Chaos Lord. It already features a large rock in its design, so here I'm using the shards around it, turning that single stone into the dominant spike within a violent cluster of erupting rock. With all the rocky shard clusters in place, let's move on. Grab an earth texture paste. Place some skulls and bones basing bits nearby. Focus on all the remaining surface of the bases, the dry ground earth of this brutal landscape. As the paste begins to dry, you can start placing the skulls and bones, pressing them against the texture. This texture will form the first layer of our ground effect. From under it, the shards have erupted, and over it all kinds of dusts, debris, skulls, corpses and other remains continue to accumulate, a symbol of the everlasting destruction that persists in the Chaos Wasteland. If your miniature already has an earth section in its own sculpt, or a rock or another element, use the texture paste against the edges of these areas, covering them and achieving a realistic ground effect. Since we want to portray a brutal and hostile environment, pushing the look of our Earth further is a great idea. We should make it look as rough and dry as we can. In the next steps, we'll be improving the look of our ground. To emphasize the look of dryness, we can introduce some crackle paste to our recipe. But before we apply the crackle, let's add a layer of PVA glue to improve the effect. These steps are optional, but if, like me, you want to really drive these bases to their full glory, let's build this. While the glue is still half wet, apply the crackle paste over it, making sure to reach the edges in most of the spots, immersing your scene. Leave the bases to dry for some time. The final foundational step will be to add some sands or rock powder to the ground, to represent all the loose debris scattered across this soil. Like the crackle, this is also optional, depending on how much extra detail you're aiming for, and on how many tufts you plan to add later. Don't forget that more tufts will mean less visible ground in the end, so for many cases this can be a bit too extra and you might want to skip this step. Nonetheless, I thought best to showcase all the different techniques available, so you can decide how far you want to push your bases. So let's choose a sand to use. Here are some sands and dusts we already have prepared, collected outside or found in conventional construction stores. If you are working on larger areas, such as bigger base sizes, a terrain piece, or even an army display, I really recommend using some kind of these dusts. They are extremely useful to differentiate zones and to improve the authenticity of your ground. For this theme, I went with some sharp schist-like powder to fit the angular shape of our chaos shards. But you can use any other type of sand and achieve good results. Round-shaped grains can give the idea of rolled debris, suited for road tracks, whereas sharp angular grains will mimic crumbling rock, present for example in a mountain slope. So let's get it done. Mix PVA glue with water, achieving a liquid milky consistency. Coat the ground surface with it, avoiding the bits. Then sprinkle the dusts over the bases as you see fit. Right after, adjust the position of the debris by using the brush, enveloping everything. Keep the borders clean and smooth as you go. When everything is dry, remove all the loose sands that didn't fix, ensuring everything is ready to be primed. Now that our physical scene is built, let's delve into the painting stage for these bases. All will be pretty clear, following a simple and forgiving recipe, adaptable to all hobby paints. Let's start off by grabbing a black spray primer. This way, we can easily prime our bases with a dark tone, which will be a perfect starting point. To use the spray, let's go outside. Make sure to shake the can pretty well, so the paint remains thin. Don't push the trigger directly at the bases. Apply the spray in swooping motions, like this. Keep turning your bases, so you apply the spray from different angles. Prime your models too, if you're working on them together with the base. The painting recipe is very straightforward and simple to follow, relying on base coats, applying a wash, and some dry brushes. If you think about how each tone supports the story of the landscape, you will make sure your bases feel grounded and believable. The core idea behind this color scheme is to portray a burned and corrupted landscape, torn apart by violent rocks that release vivid oxides from below. Scattered all across, bone piles stand out against the dark ground.
Look at the bones!
Grab a wet palette and a brush and let's prepare the paints. Begin by applying a strong base coat over the main areas of the base. First, the ground using a mixture of dark greys and burnt umber. The paints can be pretty thin for this step. We are just adding some color variation and removing the glossy look of the primer. Next, base coat the shards using a mixture of slightly cooler grey tones. A wet palette will help you mix the paints. Make sure to coat everything here, reaching the full body of the shards. Grab a cardboard now to dry the paint on the brush. Let's add a strong dry brush as a first highlight. It's easier now when the bones are still unpainted. Use a lighter grey for the ground and a blue-grey on the shards. This is an effective way to immediately sharpen our various textures, building up their shape. Now we can move on to the bones. Base coat them with a mixture of beige colors. Use a fine-tipped brush for better control. You want to avoid painting beyond the bones here. Also, you might want to add a second layer of paint here, after the first one dries, since we are painting a light tone over the black. Follow the same logic. Proceed by dry brushing them with a lighter beige. It could be interesting to differentiate bone tones, for example, the human versus the orc, as a way to add variety. For this tutorial, however, I've kept all the bones within the same beige range to keep things simpler. At this stage, we find ourselves in the ideal moment to base coat all those extra details present amidst the bones, right before we apply a wash to unify everything. With this, I mean all the old metals that lie scattered, like the shields and helmets, and any wasteland animals that can bring a tiny bit of life to the scene, such as the vultures or the elusive jagged crab. Give them some base colors now, in order to benefit from applying a wash to all materials in just one go. For these, I haven't brought any specific paint recipe, as they are highly customizable. You can paint them in a way that connects to your army, for example. And now, with everything dry, let's apply the wash. Apply the wash thoroughly over all surfaces. Aim to reach every underside of the bits and also all the edges of the bases. We don't want any unpainted spots to end up with a unified and cohesive look. In just one step, we took care of all our shadow points, enhancing the depth. With the wash completely dry, we will add the rest of the highlights by dry brushing everything once again. This time with greater precision and gradually using lighter tones. Use light greys on the earth ground, same as before. Then bluer greys for the shards. Starting with the same tone we applied before the wash, but reaching a much lighter tone, an almost whitish blue, now focusing mainly on the upper areas of the shards. The only element missing so far, the skulls and bones. Let's apply the same logic to them. Begin by dry brushing a light beige tone more intensely, reaching every edge and detail. Followed by an even brighter, pale beige, aiming for the higher spots of the bits. Take a moment here to refine the custom details of your scene, adding extra highlights or any other finishing touches you feel are needed. Now that all our elements are fully painted and highlighted, let's add a weathering layer to simulate all those oxides and dirt that would saturate the landscape. Let's use some dry pigments. Dig out a small, well-worn brush. It's perfect for this step, since we won't be needing a straight or precise tip. Open the pigment pot and use the lid's interior as a little palette. Spread a small amount of pigment there, so you can control exactly how much lands on your brush before working it onto your base. Proceed by smearing the pigment in the desired spots. Starting with the red iron, apply a generous amount over and around the chaos shards, creating an intense dry aura. Better to go slow and add tiny amounts. That way you can tweak the effect and avoid adding too much too fast. You can also add a touch of this red tone to some spots of the earth ground, but don't overdo it here. Focus instead on the junctions where the spikes converge, while leaving the higher, jagged points mostly untouched. You can see how this weathering layer will make the theme look much drier. Next, add a touch of light rust to some of those same areas, but concentrating it deep within the core of the shard clusters. Think of this as a heavier buildup of oxides, accumulating most intensely where the earth has been torn open the widest. The orange tone of this pigment will also add a touch of color variation to bring more realism to the final result. Across the earth ground, particularly over the skulls and scattered bones, you can add a touch of charcoal. This deepens the shadows and sells the idea of scorched remains, as though soot and other burnt debris drift endlessly across this accursed land. And finally, the rim goes black, framing each base as a window into a world that extends far beyond its edges. We now arrive at the third and final act of our journey, adding vegetation to the scene. Very little can survive here. The few grasses that do exist barely cling to life, shaped by relentless dryness and by scorching magical winds. What remains are tufts that look burned and starved, thin, withered and creeping, locked in an endless struggle to survive where no life should endure. We shall start with a 6mm burned. Place some PVA glue on a flat surface and dip the tuft's underside. Though they stand as the tallest tufts, even they already look parched and ravaged by the elements. This can be a good moment to glue your painted models on the base to help you decide the position of the tufts. Cluster 2 or 3 of these tufts depending on the base size, aiming for the areas where the earth's soil is denser and near the base's edge, as if the tufts continue beyond. For smaller bases, maybe just 1 or 2 of these tufts will suffice. Let's proceed to the brown 4mm tufts. Generically speaking, glue them near the shard clusters surrounding them. Also, add a few more of these tufts compared to the last. My suggestion is to include at least 2 on every base. This is because of their strong red tone. It will intensify the color of your scene for a more eye-catching look, complementing the colors of the dry pigments as well. One might imagine that over time they have found a way to sustain themselves on the iron oxides, gradually adopting the same reddish tones. Moving on to the lower grasses, grab the 2mm burned tufts. These tufts resemble their taller cousins, but appear even more diminished, as if they learned not to grow beyond what this land allows. Position them in crevices where a bit of soil could still settle, and also next to the previous tufts, creating a gradual transition of heights. Remember that you can join multiple tufts together to create larger patches. The opposite is also useful. You can divide the tufts if you feel the need. The hardiest of the tufts will be the tiny black, managing to persist even where no soil exists. In the fissures of the stone shards, they can linger, and 1 or 2 can still be seen, surviving in the middle of the cracked ground. This tiny grass also seems to attach itself to the bones of the fallen warriors, engulfing them in dark, creeping foliage. Are they reaching for whatever nutrients remain in the crumbling bones? Place them in these spots. Since they are so small, you can add a good amount of these tufts to your bases. Their 1mm height is ideal, creating a micro-realistic texture. And yet, amidst the ruin, one species defies it all. With a strange humming, and with a slight blue glow to it, it stands unscathed, its roots burrowing deep as if drawing strength from something far below. It does not merely survive, it thrives. How can this be? Is it bound to a raw, primal essence of the world, so profoundly attuned to it that it mocks chaos itself as it fails to consume it? To add this last touch, grab the blue agave laser plants. In this theme, they will be portraying these fictional plants, a mystical species. They will prompt the narrative and look of your scenario to the next level. So let's shape them. It's easy. Start by folding each leaf, lengthwise. The plants are not only strong in our story, they are extremely durable in real life, since they are made with plastic. Next, curve the tips of the leaves backward, using the tweezers. Just a small twist is enough. It really becomes much easier to follow these steps if you apply some strength. Then, bring the leaves together by squishing them against each other, making them fan outwards. You will end up with a plant like this, ready to step on the base. Given they are made with plastic, use superglue to fix them in place. Add the plants over the areas with denser grass, directly on top the tufts. Visualize different spots for the plants before gluing them. The idea is to stack multiple leaf groups together. Start with a bigger one, and then glue a smaller one right in the middle. Create larger or smaller plants by combining them as you see fit. You can also have your miniature already on the base to check the best positions and to avoid adding them to where you would fix the model. You can also cluster the plants by type, the striped darker variant versus the brighter, almost luminous kind. Or you can mix both types together, it's up to you. Their blue tone will create a striking contrast against the opposite reds of the brown tufts and pigments, prompting an harmonious and appealing effect. And so our journey comes to an end. The Chaos Wasteland lies complete, ready for your armies and adventurers. Thank you for following along. Now go forth and make this theme your own.